Yo, yo, yo! What's up, everybody? You already know who it is. Your girl Rose Gold, back with another episode of Heartbreak Hill Podcast. Got a very, very, very special treat and guest for you today. We'll be right back.
Yo, yo, yo! It's your girl Rose Gold, and thank you for tuning in for an episode of Heartbreak Hill Podcast. Here, we are breaking hearts and blowing minds, one conversation at a time. Catch us weekly on all podcast platforms. Beginning February of 2022, catch us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on Comcast Channel 17. Don't forget, if you have an email or a question you would like to have read on air, please send us an email to hbhp@heartbreakhillpodcast.com. While you're at it, don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms at Heartbreak Hill Podcast. Now let's break some hearts and blow some minds, shall we?
Once again, thank you all so much for joining us. I have the pleasure and honor to introduce to you today the fabulous Quianna Footman. Quianna is not only a wonderful, spectacular author, which is actually why we brought her here today, one of the reasons, but she is also a licensed cosmetologist and mother of two girls, born and raised in Philadelphia. Quianna is joining us today to talk about and go into depth about her book, Level Up, Single Mom. Struggling all her life with self-esteem and identity issues, she came to appreciate the power of self-actualization and how perfecting one's personal style can aid in achieving just that. Through her beauty and lifestyle brand, Minx Beauty, Quianna seeks to help others reinvent themselves through their mindset as well as their aesthetic presentation. Quianna, welcome.
Hello.
Yes, I am so excited to have you here, and I'm looking at you and I am trying so hard to not just like hug you through this camera because I had the honor, everybody, of reading Quianna's book this week. And let me tell you, I know that the title is Level Up Single Mom. I'm not a single mom. But when I say I'm not even a mom. Let me just start there. I've had the pleasure of raising children. I've had that pleasure and that experience, but I've never actually birthed a child. And your book literally touched my soul. Literally touched. I'm a reader. Anybody that knows me, that's what I do in my spare time. I watch TV. I watch my shows. Don't get me wrong, but I'm a reader at heart. That's what I do. And girl. So I just want to know, first of all, how did you think, or how did you even come up with a book? And where did the title Level Up Single Mom come from?
So when I was a teen mother, I got pregnant at 18. I had my daughter 2 weeks before my 19th birthday. So when I was sitting there with my little baby in the dark one night, I remember just bawling my eyes out because I was just like, I gotta raise this kid. It's a whole person. What am I going to do? And I heard, you're going to figure this out and you're going to help other people. So that kind of put in me a notion to want to pay attention to what I was going through, and then keep track of how I was handling the different things that were coming up so that I could help other people, because it was very embarrassing and lonely and just really hard. It wound up becoming the idea of being a book when I started going through certain things with my child's father. At the time, I only had one child. And I would be different places and either talking to other women, like the welfare office, places where there were other single moms like me. And like, we're all going through the same type of stuff. We're all going through the same things, the same problems of dealing with people and feeling like we need to not be dealing with them, but not knowing how to stop, or, whatever. And being on self-help, I'm a reader too.
Yes.
So I was seeing the Stephen Labassere's, the Man Guy Has For You, all this other stuff. I'm like, well, there's a market for women wanting to, better themselves and improve their situation and things like that. So I was like, I'll put it in a book.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you did, because there were so many things. And I have a few quotes that I want to just jump into because they really touch my soul. But I'm going to jump into that in a second. But I just want our audience, to know a little bit just more about you as a person. So you talked about becoming a single mother and how you were interacting with these single mothers in these places where you all were kind of experiencing the same types of things. And you decided to write a book to help people. At what point in your life did you begin to feel embarrassed or ashamed of being a single mom?
Oh, right from the beginning. Like as soon as I knew I was pregnant, it was just like, because I was in college at the time. And I remember I came home for Christmas break. And we were all at a family member's house, and everybody was just giving me props for being in school and having done the right thing and being a good girl and everything. And I was just like, in my mind, I'm not a good girl. I'm not a good girl. I'm sitting here. They don't even know I got a baby in my belly. I was like, this is the last Christmas I'm going to have, as a child, as a good girl.
Yeah.
And so right from the beginning.
Right from the beginning. And you expressed in the book about how there was a certain sort of blow to your self-esteem when you decided that you said the abortion wasn't going to be in your mind. You knew that you were going to have this child. That was something that you kind of decided. And you said that there was I specifically remember you saying that there was a certain type of blow to your self-esteem once you decided in your mind that you were going to do this as a single mother. Talk to me about that blow to your self-esteem and how being a mom early can affect your self-esteem.
So, like I said, I grew up with this identity of being a good girl and a smart girl specifically. Those were that was my identity.
Gotcha.
And once I stepped into the realm of understanding, like, oh, I'm having a baby out of wedlock. These are things that I didn't realize. It was kind of like landmines that are embedded in all of us. Sure. So once it became my reality, it was just like, oh, shoot, I can't be a good girl and a single mom. I can't be, an intelligent girl and a single mom. And especially over time, as I was dealing with trying to navigate my life as a single mother and all the perceived like societal failures, I'm on welfare, I'm this and I'm that, it really got to a point where I was explicitly saying to myself, you can't be all that smart if this is your life. So it really just tore me down internally in terms of thinking like, who am I as a person? If I'm not smart, if I'm not, good, what is the point?
Right. And did you find that once you did become a single mother with your first daughter, did you find that other people began to judge you? Did you experience that at all?
Yes. I mean, now I would say I had some people like say specific things, but it was more so an awareness of feeling like I was being looked at different. Specifically in my family, like I remember I used to always like to sit out on the step on the porch, in front of the house. And I remember one time when I was big and pregnant and I was sitting on the porch and my grandma was like, why you sitting out here? All the church people going to see you sitting out. I wasn't doing anything but sitting there, but I'm sitting there with a pregnant belly.
Right.
So there was that. And then there was dealing with guys, dealing with men and things like that, and kind of learning how men are and how they think, realizing that, oh, if you are a single mother, they kind of think that you automatically are easy or you're automatically for certain, you're not for marrying or anything like that. You're just for fun and, stuff like that. So it was difficult. So, because some of the stuff, like I said, I initially didn't necessarily understand in terms of how other people would see me.
Yes.
It was a rude awakening for me.
Got you. And that's a very, very, very interesting point. I love how you are talking about, and even in the book, how you describe how it affected your perspective of stuff. Right. I don't think a lot of people talk about that. So, and you just brought up another good point. So the dating pool, right? You say in the book here, and this is a quote from you, and you said that basically you had to take a step aside and you had to really get back into seeing how you would fit in the dating pool as a single mother. And that, you had I'm saying this completely wrong. The womanly fear that you had permanently handicapped yourself in the dating market, if not disqualified yourself outright by becoming a single mom.
Right.
Tell me your thoughts in terms of, because I hear that a lot. As I told you before, I don't have children, but I all of my friends do, right? I have some who have mixed boys, girls, whatever. And a lot of times, dating for a single mother can be difficult or different, but not so much for the men. I find too much the men don't care. It's more so the women feel that somehow because they have made choices and they're a single mom, that they are not worthy of marriage anymore. They're no longer dating material, or that they've disqualified themselves. Mm-hmm. How did you get out of that mindset of I'm not disqualified because I'm a single mom?
Definitely had to take years to myself. It wasn't so much about, it went from being about, oh, this is how people are going to see me, this is how people are going to treat me, to this is what I'm going to accept. So okay. It's one of those things where now I'm in a space where I'm like, it's going to be this or nothing. And mind you, I'm not saying like, oh, I have to get married or anything like that, but just understanding that I set the tone for how I'm going to be dealt with. So if I see somebody coming towards me with energy that says, I'm treating you like this because I see you this way, then I get to say, oh, no, you can keep that. I'll stay to myself, until I find somebody that's just like, hey, I like you. I think you're great.
Absolutely. And so, and with that, I just kind of want to dive into just kind of right into the pages. And I don't want to give up too much because we definitely, if everybody's watching, we are going to have a link to purchase Level Up Single Mom. There will be a link in the description of this episode. So don't worry, you guys. But I want to dive in because you touched on some really, really, really good points. And you kind of just segued into it when you said that you set the tone for how you're going to be treated in the relationship. And you set the tone for pretty much what you're going to accept. And there's a scene in the book, and it brought tears to my eyes, and I'm not going to lie, because I remember as a woman, I could tear up just thinking about it, being in this situation myself. You talk about how your first daughter's father, you guys reconnect, she's about 2, and how he goes through all of this traveling to come to your grandmother's house, which is pretty far from where he was at the time. So he put in a lot of effort to come see you, and your child, the child that you all share, put in so much effort to come to you. And then you guys do what grown people do. And then he reminds you that he wants to move forward in his relationship with someone else. And I felt that so hard. And you don't have to be in that exact situation to know what it is to go into a situation, especially after having sex, expecting more, and then experiencing that type of rejection. What was that moment like for you in terms of, you talk about breaking out of a certain naivety at that point when he said those words, it grew you up. Tell us about that moment.
Yeah, so I tend to say as I've gotten older, I recognize that I was quite privileged to have been raised in an environment where I didn't have a lot of knowledge of manipulation.
Okay.
I was in a place where I could pretty much take things at face value.
Gotcha.
And I didn't have a habit of assuming the worst.
Gotcha.
Of people. So, and to be clear, it wasn't like there weren't times where he would do things and what he said and what he did didn't quite add up. So it wasn't the fact that, he had never lied to me before, but it was more so the fact of the amount of effort that it seemed to me that he had put into coming and then making sure that I was in a certain frame of mind to get me there to do that was the part that tripped me up, because I just couldn't imagine somebody doing that much for something that meant so little.
Right. Wow.
And so it was like it blew me away. I was stunned, and I was for days after, like I was messed up off of that, because I just was like, I couldn't understand how one could be so callous.
Yes.
With doing something like that. Like I said, it wasn't a matter of me being upset that he didn't want to be with me. Right. It wasn't a matter of me being upset even that he just wanted to have casual sex. It was the fact that you were not going to take no for an answer, because it could have been a general conversation. Hey, you want to do this?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, hey, I've been thinking about you. You want to do this? And, be clear. We're just doing this. And it could have been a yes. It could have been a no. But it was clear once everything went down that it was going to happen. According to him, like he was going to make sure that it happened, and that was very much so paradigm shifting for me.
Absolutely, and I can imagine why. And like you said, it wasn't the fact that he didn't want to be with you or that he had wanted to be with someone else. That part you could handle.
Yeah,
it was when a man puts in effort to see you and be with, and you guys have to read the book to really understand the amount of effort that he put in to get her attention at this time. But when a guy does something like that, you translate that to them. That's effort. That's you must mean what you're doing and what you're saying.
Yeah, because I wouldn't. I'm a lazy person in certain senses, so I'm not putting forth any more effort than I need to put, and I'm gonna be crystal clear because I don't want you coming back to me.
Exactly.
Talking about you did this and that and the other. So
absolutely no, and I feel that, and like I said, it really brought tears to my eyes because I can remember thinking that type of effort meant more than what it actually means, especially around those tender ages of, less than 25, where you're still kind of figuring out who you are.
Yeah.
You do take things at face value. And so I just appreciated that story so much. I really am thankful that you said that. You said something else in the book where you said that there comes a point in time, and this is actually, I'm cheating a little bit, but this is actually step one of leveling up, unveiling, taking the veil off, take that veil off. And you mentioned how you mentioned two things that I want to talk about. But one of the things is you talk about how withholding sex is important in lifting that veil up. Can you talk to me about what lifting the veil is in step one of leveling up? And how does withholding sex, or kind of keeping your sexuality to yourself, how does that play a part in taking that veil off?
So the veil itself is basically what most people call rose-colored glasses. Yeah. So it is this these ideas or a filter over what you're seeing that's more focused on you being able to stay with that person, or giving you reason to keep working with that person and putting yourself in a position to keep having that person do the same stuff. So basically, like, they renege on something they said they were going to do, and in your mind you're going to rationalize it like, oh well, they've been working really hard, they're tired, or they have a lot of stuff on them, or this person came before and now he doesn't trust the same. So it's all the things that we tell ourselves to not tell ourselves, hey, this person just doesn't care, and deal with them accordingly. So when it comes to sex being involved, if you are, it's an added layer. If you consider it good sex, I know, but even the fact that you've done it, like, it's so nuanced, the way sex plays a role in our ideas about what we're doing for a man, or what we're sharing with a man.
Yes.
So it's like, once we've given ourselves to that man, it's just like, well, you kind of owe me something, or it means a certain thing or whatever. And so then we're like, I'm invested, so I can't walk away from this situation without getting a payoff, and so we're willing to just keep investing and investing and investing, because ultimately the ends will justify the means. And so when you're in a space where you're like, well, I'm going to not have sex, and it's not about, oh, I'm not going to have sex and you're going to do what I want you to do. And, it's about just saying, no. Yeah, it's about just saying, I'm not going to have sex so that I can be sure that I'm discerning things properly.
So
that I can be sure that I'm not so invested in this that I'm going to keep pouring myself into, a open-ended situation where everything is just falling out.
Absolutely. That is so powerful. I love how you talk about, because this is something that people feel, and this is why I love you so much. And I had to get you on here because this is something that people think about, but they are too afraid to say. We live in a society where if you want, if you're not okay with casual sex, you lame or you goofy or you want, and it's so much deeper than what people portray it as, especially for women. And it does change how you invest and how long you want to be invested, especially if it's good sex. And I love how you decipher the two, because it is a difference, and it makes a difference in how we react. So thank you for that. I want to go into the other part, the second part of my two-part question with that was, you talk about how when you have went through a tough time, you can sometimes be at a low point, not have, maybe not a car, not a crib, or maybe you don't have your license, you don't have, just the basic necessities that an adult should have.
Mm-hmm.
And you could sometimes find yourself stumbling into relationships while you're in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a part in the book towards the beginning where you talk about how a lot of people don't see nothing wrong with dating while you're in a space where you don't have all of your ducks in a row. And it's not being about, you specifically say it's not about, having all of your dreams and all of your goals accomplished, but it's about having all of your priorities, your license, your car, your crib, your job, your stability, and all of those things in place before you start dating. And you talk about how when you didn't have those priorities, you were dating, you met your second child's father, your second daughter's father. And you talk about the danger in dating in a place where you don't have that all together.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about that and why that's important.
Yeah, well, mainly because we're all humans are social creatures, so we need connection. I'm not saying that you're not lovable, you're not deserving of love, but it's a thing where we see a lot, especially in our community, we see a lot of people kind of self-medicating with different things, and one of those things we will do it was with relationships. So it's when you're in a down spot and you might need to be prioritizing getting your stability or getting your stability back. Instead, it's like, oh, well, me and this person are together and we have love. And we're just kind of anesthetizing ourselves with that other person's presence in our lives. And it's like, it's one thing if you got somebody with you and they're kind of helping you stay focused, but it's another thing if both of y'all are kind of escaping through each other.
Yes.
And that was where it kind of was like, I mean, now mind you, there were discussions and we were supposed to be planning this and planning that. But honestly, by the time I realized that he wasn't really like where I was or headed where I was headed, it was a quick switch of, oh, I need to get this. And everything got into place. But when I was dealing with that person, it was us. I'm trying to make plans for us. I'm trying to think of a family of 4 instead of a family of 3 where it was just me and my girls.
Sure.
But if you're planning, and I see it so much, again, talking to different people, you've got the mindset of us, the family or whatever, and that kind of keeps you from being able to do certain things because you got to include this other person. But if that person is not, in that same mindset, then you're not getting anywhere. And the next thing you got 4 or 5 kids.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. And I love that because it's so much deeper than how you feel about somebody. Mm-hmm. It's their mindset. All of that plays a very, very, very big role. And I just love how you touched on that piece about just making sure it's not about you being unlovable. It's not about you not even being able to date if you don't want, but serious relationships and all of that. Have your own ducks in a row. And I love that. I love that you said that. I want to kind of break into another section where you talk about how you're in this place with your second child and you are a single mom for the second time. And you talk about how you had learned from your first situation. So you didn't stick around long.
No.
Right? Yes, which I love because you learned something. And a lot of times we miss on the fact that we learned. But you learned. You didn't stay around long for that second father. But I love, there's a part of the book that made me emotional where you said you sat down and you were living not too far down the street from your second child's father, him and his new, he had decided to find, do his own thing with another family. And you're there, and you said you got your place. You're at this place where you're stable, and you are now in the realization that you're a single mom for the second time, and how you had to self-reflect about the choices that you had made up into this point of your second child. Can you tell me about that reflection process?
Yeah. It was a lot of quiet time.
Yes.
A lot of isolation, and not like isolation like shut in the dark. I mean, sometimes it felt like that, but just I'm an introspective person anyway.
Sure.
But some people aren't.
Yeah.
Some people just constantly got to have something going, people talking, whatever.
Yes.
But it really was about sitting down and just kind of asking myself, okay, what is it that you want now? What is it that you wanted? And how did we get here? Because this doesn't look like what you wanted, and it's not what you want. How did we get here? And then kind of saying to myself, I remember for a long time I have a whiteboard, and I just had written across it for years, nobody's coming to save you. And taking the time to grieve that statement. Initially, it was a sadness, and then it was an anger, and this isn't fair, and then eventually it gave way to, okay, what are we going to do?
Wow. So you had to, when you said grieve, because I like that word. A lot of people don't think that when you in a relationship that you thought was going to last, there is a grieving process that comes after that. And a lot of people don't acknowledge that. But you use that word. And since you use that word, did you find yourself tempted during that grieving process to self-medicate with other lovers, or, partying, or kind of attention seeking online? Did you find yourself doing that during that grieving process?
No, I actually went through that with my first child's father.
Gotcha.
So that was something where I was in a space where I'm like, I don't want to go that route. I actually went the complete opposite route with the second one because, mind you, my first child's father was somebody I just kind of met at a high point in my life. And then I got pregnant, and then, everything went the way that it went. The second child's father was someone that I knew and I had a really good relationship with in high school prior to even meeting my first child's father. He kind of reintroduced me to myself before the fall. And so what I kind of recognized over time was that, how they say people are there for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And his reasoning was to kind of remind me of my inherent goodness and everything like that. So in recognizing that, it was just kind of like, well, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I don't know how to pick them. And so I was like, if I don't know how to pick them, then it became, well, is it that I don't know how to pick them, or what's really out there? So then I started looking for information and trying to learn about men, because I really didn't know about men and male-female relationships and stuff like that. And the more I learned, the more it was kind of like, well, do I even want a man? Like, I didn't know what I wanted. And so it really wasn't an environment conducive of me saying, well, I want to bring a bunch of men in my space. It really was more of a space of, I'm trying to figure out, what are men? What do they do? What are they supposed to do? What do I want one to do for me? What can I do for them? What do I want to do for them? It was just a lot of question asking. So it really wasn't a thing where I felt like I needed or wanted men in my space until I figured out what the purpose of one being there would be.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think that you hit on a very good point, Quianna, because even in my own personal life, a lot of times in our community, Black, people of color, however you want to say it, we are not taught as women how to respect men, how to talk to men, what to receive, what is acceptable to be accepted from men, how to treat men, right? And you go through this in your book about how you should educate yourself before you actually start to find the one, or before you even have an idea of what that is, how you should go out and investigate and educate yourself about what the male species is, what a healthy relationship looks like. Where do you recommend a person would start? Where does a person start with figuring out what a healthy relationship is? If they're a man, how do they figure out what is a woman? How do I treat a woman? Or if they're a woman, how do I treat a man? What is a man? Where did you start your journey? What can people do?
So, I mean, overall, it's been a bunch of different sources. It's been observing people in my life. It's been, listening to my friends and talking with friends. It's also been books. I would go and try to find books on how to be, like I mentioned, Stephen Lavisser and all different types of people. But I feel like the most wealth of knowledge that I've gotten, and I know some people, I don't know how familiar you are with it, but it was from the manosphere.
Okay, yeah.
I had wound up, so I've loved YouTube since pretty much its inception, because it's just I love public television, so it's a lot like public television.
Yes.
So in me, like I said, when I went through that period of trying to learn about myself and men and how we're supposed to relate and everything like that, I stumbled into the manosphere. And I actually started listening to men talking. And I'll be honest with you, there was some disgust, and that's where I'm saying I was in that place where, do I even want a man? Like there was some disgust. There was some things I was like, okay, fair enough,
right.
Whatever. But it ultimately led me to start being more analytical in my real life of when I hear certain things being said, men saying certain things, and being able to understand where it comes from. Like I said, that part in the book that I read about, him coming to me and me thinking it meant one thing and it meant something completely different. Being able to actually be like, okay, I see how that got misinterpreted. I see where that comes from. I see, why he thought that was okay, not excusing it at all, but just really having a working knowledge of what is going on around me and with me. And that has helped me to be more savvy in, like I said, making decisions instead of concessions.
Absolutely. And I love, and that's kind of a great segue because in the book, you talk about how when you come to this space and this place of realization in yourself and what it is that you want and things like that, you talk about how you witnessed your second child's father take advantage of a woman not wanting to be a single mother. And I just want to say, I want you to answer that, but there's a myth in our community, two myths, I think, that we are going to address with this question. There's one myth that in order for the love to be true or real, that you have to be cheated on multiple times first, and then he'll grow up and marry you or get with you. And then there's another myth that you are supposed to fight for your male, or you're supposed to I'm not, you see these things on social media, I'm not coming off him, I'm going to make him do the right thing by me. You touched on that in the book, and it gave me chills because I remember being in that space when I was married a few years back. No longer married now, but I remember being in that space that I'm going to dig my heels in and I'm going to fight to death. Can you talk to me about men taking advantage of you, not just wanting to be, not you specifically, but just women, men taking advantage of women not wanting to be a single mom, and also how taking advantage of you not wanting to be single, how that looks, and how women can self-reflect about that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I mean, we see it all the time. We'll see somebody in a relationship where that's their man or whatever like that, but you also know that he does whatever he does, or that they're your friend is telling you the type of things that he does that doesn't sound like he's really appreciative of their presence in their life or whatever like that. And I think that in our culture, it's glorified through the music and the media that is aimed towards us. Because I grew up mainly on like public television and stuff, I have a very wide palette of what I like to watch, and a lot of it I've been told, I act white, or, I have bougie taste or whatever like that in terms of what I resonate towards. And I actually had somebody tell me one time, like, you're letting all that white media, affect you. I said, no, or he said something about, like, you shouldn't let white people feed your spirit. I said, I let good people feed my spirit. And that doesn't mean every good person is a white person, but if they're saying something that resonates with me, I don't care, what their color is, if it makes sense to me on a deep level. But if you think in that way, and a lot of people do, of, oh, if it's black, but look at the majority of what is pushed in terms of media in our black spheres, and a lot of it is dysfunctional, a lot of it is abusive, a lot of it is saying, hey woman, you got a mule, you got a mammy, you got to sacrifice, you got to give every single thing, and then you got to find some more to give, and then maybe you'll be rewarded. But even if he didn't reward you, it wasn't him, it was you.
It was your problem. It was something wrong with you.
It was a deficiency in you. And like I said, when it came to me becoming a single mother, a lot of this stuff I didn't even know I was carrying internally. It was like a landmine. So as soon as I recognized that I was going to be a single mother, all of a sudden, oh yeah, you're a statistic, you're this, you're that. So then kicked in the defense of that. Well, I'm not going to be a statistic. So now I'm going to dig my heels in, and I'm going to make him be with me. I'm going to make him marry me. I'm going to make him validate me. And all identity. I'm fighting for my literal life and my literal existence. Wow. So I'm not paying attention to the fact just this doesn't make sense. It would probably be easier to just let him go on about his business and not. And yet, so it's insidious. It's scary. It's dangerous, but it is what is going on every day, all day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And maybe this could be because when you were telling this story, it was about your second child's father. So how did you come? You knew that by the time he came around that you weren't gonna dig your heels in and let anyone take advantage. Yes, you weren't gonna let him take advantage of the fact that you wanted a family. But by the way you wrote the book, I can tell that that's something that you had experienced before. What would be your advice to a woman who is digging her heels into a relationship that she knows is not fruitful? It's not going to go where the man is of low quality because he chooses to be of low quality. But she wants her family and she wants to not be a statistic so bad. What would you tell her in terms of leveling up?
Statistics are on paper. Statistics are not human. Statistics don't live your life, and you have to create a life that is livable. So it's a choice whether or not you want to suffer in order to not show up a certain way on paper, or if you want to have a life that when you close your eyes for the last time, you are satisfied with your experience.
Absolutely. Wow. That is, now, if you can't look at yourself and if that's not clear, I don't know what is, because that was just too real. Now, if you can't look at yourself and ask them type of questions, you don't need to be looking at yourself, because that right there should answer any doubts about if you should stay in this situation or not. That question to yourself, right? Do I want to stay in this mess, self-created or not? Do I want to stay in this mess so that I don't appear to be a certain way on paper or to other people?
And mind you, people going to interpret what they interpret regardless what's on the paper anyway.
They're going to judge you regardless.
They're going to judge you regardless. That has nothing to do with you.
Exactly. Or do I want to do something about my life and make different choices? And I just absolutely love that. I do want to go ahead and I want to ask you about this one quote. And I think that this was a very, very powerful one for me, which is kind of why I wanted to say it to the end. You said here, and I'm going to quote you exactly: I suffered through endless embarrassment, both public and private, as well as confusion, because I refused to accept the writing on the wall. That quote was my life for a very long time. refusing to accept the writing on the wall. And when you wrote that sentence, you're not just talking about accepting the behaviors of your child's father at the time. You also go into in that paragraph talking about the writing on the wall, about the stuff that you had allowed yourself to believe, the things that you had allowed yourself to believe about your esteem and your identity and all these things. What is so powerful about accepting the writing on the wall? And how does one start to do that?
That's the grieving process. It's really sitting there and saying, okay, what was I going for?
Mm-hmm.
And then why did I want it?
Mm-hmm.
And then does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does it really make sense? If I'm being truthful with myself, do I really want that?
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm being truthful with myself, am I really going to get that? Or what is it going to cost me to get? Like, the writing on the wall is really taking the time to do the work to assess the cost versus the benefit of whatever that may be. So from whatever angle you want to go for, whether or not you want the thing, whether you don't want something else, whatever it is. But I will say it's really, really important to recognize if you are moving from a fear-based mindset or an empowered mindset of this is what I want, as opposed to this is what I don't want. So, like I said, everything that I was doing was based off of what I didn't want. But the writing on the wall was, well, this is where you are. Absolutely. The worst has happened.
Right.
In your mind. You know, in your mind, what the worst could be, it has happened. So now what? Where do we go from here? And I don't want to make it seem like, oh yes, and then you're going to sprout wings and you're going to fly away. But that is the beginning of empowering yourself to be able to make choices and create whatever it is that maybe you can't have that, but you can have something that you maybe never even thought of, and it could be better, it could be equal, it could be satisfactory, whatever it is, but it's not the turmoil that you've been putting yourself up to that point.
Absolutely. And Quianna, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I do have 2 questions from the audience that they wanted to ask. I did go ahead and advertise our meeting today on both Twitter and Instagram. And I took, not me, but we took 1 question from each social media platform. And I just went on ahead and got the 2. The first one is, this is going to be from Claire from Greensboro, North Carolina. And she says, hi, Quianna. Can you give any advice about single moms who may be experiencing who may have difficulties with disciplining their children? Do you have any tips or advice on discipline as a single mother?
Yes. My biggest tip about discipline as a single mother is you might need to take some time, because it isn't about the child. I went through a time period. I spoke about it in the book of my oldest daughter having problems.
Yes.
And what wound up happening is I needed to take some time to get all that stuff right with me that was going on, so that recognizing that when I'm addressing whatever she may be doing that I don't like, I can address it from a place of, okay, what are you going through? As opposed to stop doing that. Because when we're in a space of just stop doing that, that's wrong. What's wrong with you? We're not taking into account how we have facilitated this mood that they're in.
Absolutely.
It's spring. We are the root, and they are the fruit. So we have to figure out, okay, what's going on in me? Why is this kid? I know it may be a little controversial, but that movie Cuties. That had come out. I loved that movie because it illustrated perfectly when you see your kid and they're just acting crazy, and you didn't raise them like that, but it showed what she was experiencing and her trying to process and her trying to, and what it meant about what her life was going to be, and she was rebelling against that.
Right.
And so I had to realize that my kid was acting out because I was telling her that you need to be a good person. And I'm saying I'm a good person, but as a good person, I'm miserable. I am miserable being good. So maybe I don't want to be good.
Right.
So if what you doing means being good, I want to do the opposite of everything you're doing. I do not want that.
Exactly. That is so real, Quianna. And I think I love that you are leading. The biggest piece about discipline is how you are and what you are showing your children and what you are leading by example. I love that. One more last question here, and this is going to be from Whitney coming out of Houston. Hello, Quianna. I was a mother at 16, and I wanted to know, how can you build your self-esteem in yourself and in your children? Because at 16, so much of my self-esteem was taken away during having children young and having to raise them on my own.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips, Quianna, before we let you go, as far as how a person who does have children young, maybe they don't even realize that they suffer from low self-esteem or that their children suffer from low self-esteem, boy or girl children? What are your tips on building that in the single mother and in her building that in her children?
She has to work on herself first, because once you do it in yourself, kids are watching.
Yes.
You can tell them whatever you want to tell them. You can do this, you can direct them, but they are watching. So what she needs to focus on is figuring out why she feels deficient within herself. And one of the fast tracks that I use for doing that is go to the place you're fearful of going. So say the thing about yourself that you are scared to say, that you would be the most devastating thing to think about yourself. Allow yourself to think it, because most of the time that low self-esteem is us being in denial about what we really think about myself. So if you really sit and say to yourself, I'm a loser, and then ask yourself, okay, now you could go from there. Why do I feel like a loser? What makes me, can I change it? What do I need to do to change it? Do I even want to do that? It's just asking questions. This head back here, when I saw this, I was like, this is me. Explore your mind.
Right. Yes.
We are walking around with so much stuff in our mind that is dictating everything that we do. Take the time to empty your mind out, put it all out on the table, figure out what goes together, figure out what you need to throw away, and then, move on from there.
Absolutely. Quianna, I am blown away. I admire you. I respect you. I am thankful for you. And reading your book gave me a different perspective on not just the single mothers around me. I was raised by a single mother. I have friends that are single mothers, but also who I am as a woman and a woman of color, and the struggles that we have that are sometimes generational or taught. Regardless, they can be changed. And that's what I love most about your book, and why I had to have you on the show. That your whole you talk about these hurtful, life-changing, heartbreaking things, but in the end, you turn them into wisdom, which is what we do here. Quianna, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Out of these heartbreakers, no, you are welcome. If you want to know more about Quianna, I will have all of her bio as well as all of her social media tags in the description, as well as a link to purchase her book, Level Up Single Mom. Quianna, thank you so much. If you want to stick around backstage, you definitely can. Heartbreakers, stay tuned, because we are going to be reading Question of the Week. All right, Heartbreakers, thank you so much for watching. Now, listen, before we go ahead and let you go, I told you guys I made a big promise that we were going to be doing a question of the week, okay? Now, we've been doing pretty good so far, one question so far. So, what you guys are, if you're tuning in for the first time, basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pulling the questions that you guys all send in, and I'm going to be responding to them on air, okay? Now, there is a lot that come in, so I am doing my best to get through them. And one way we came up at the studio to do that is by taking a question and responding to it on a weekly basis on air, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and read the question of the week as well as my response, all right? This comes from Denise. Denise is coming, it looks like, oh, wow, Denise is coming from the Virgin Islands. Hello, Denise. Denise says the following. Hello, Rose Gold. Thank you so much for your show. I love it. I listen to it on Pandora all the time, and it really gets me going through my day. I have a question that I think a lot of girls my age go through. I'm 33 years old, and I am a mother of 3. Most of my children are grown. They're all boys, and they don't give me any trouble. But I am single. I was married for a brief time when I was in my late teens, late teens, 19. But I ended up getting divorced when I was 23. Since then, I have had 3 children, and I am currently single, and I am dating. Now, the problem with the guy that I am dating is that he is currently still married. Him and his wife have been separated for a year. They are not, that is in capital letters, getting back together. And I know this for sure. He has introduced me to his children. He has even given me keys to his apartment that he lives in alone. I only feel bad about it because I was raised in church to really take marriage as an honorable thing. And I know that this is the man that I want to be with. Am I really and truly wrong for dating someone who is not with his wife anymore, even though they are still legally married? What are your thoughts on this? And if there's anything I can do, what should it be? Well, I want to thank you, first of all, for writing in, as we all like to hear and we like to explore with each other what we're going through. And I love that you were able to put it all out there for me, because it shows that you feel comfortable with me enough to share. A lot of people don't like to talk about dating people that are married because there's a certain taboo that comes with it, right? I would tell you this because I did this. So I'm speaking from experience. I dated while I was still legally married. My ex-husband and I, we were for sure separated over a year, actually, at the time. The paperwork can take a while. It's pretty much what it means, especially if one of the people in the marriage has assets. It can take a while to divide all that up. Some person may not agree with what they're getting. People, are just sometimes reluctant to get a divorce. There's a lot of reasons why that process can be prolonged. But I want to tell you, with so much love and so much kindness, that you are doing a very, 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 very foolish thing by dating someone who's still legally married. Okay? And here's why it's foolish. It's foolish on one accord because you said that you grew up in church and marriage is honorable among all. And that's true even if you grew up in church or not. And there's a certain sort of consequence that comes when you get involved with someone that is still legally married. Now, if you really, really like this guy and you want to be with him, I would suggest that you be his friend through this process. I don't suggest that you engage sexually with him. And I know if you've already done that it can be hard, but you're setting yourself up for low value because you're dating someone who is still connected. If he got hit by a bus tonight, God forbid, they would call his wife, not you. If something were to happen and there were to be any sort of money left behind, it would be left to his wife, not you. And I'm saying these things because while I know what you're feeling, you're being very clear in your email that a lot of why you're being driven into this place of dating him is because of your own loneliness, which is no judgment. But date someone who doesn't have baggage. This guy, if you really like him and you really want to be his number one, and you really be his friend during this time, when the divorce is final, maybe you two could go on a trip or something, have something fun, do something. But don't engage with him sexually. Don't engage with him or invest into a relationship with him while he's still married. And I want to point something else out to you really quick, Deborah. Not Deborah, sorry. I want to point out to you that he doesn't have long-term intentions for you if he's dating you while he's still married. Okay. And I know that can be hard to grasp because, like you said, divorce can take a while, it can be, but there's a certain sort of grieving and healing that takes place while you're going through that process, and you disrupt it when you're dating. And the people that want to be with you, really and truly want to be with you, they won't want you while you're still legally married to someone else. So I would question the character of the person who's still married and wanting to date because they're trying to escape from something. Divorce is very painful. Even if you're divorcing a person that was bad to you, it's still a very painful thing. So it sounds like he may be using you to medicate. And why I'm saying this without knowing much about him is because the situation tells a lot. He's still legally and spiritually bound to someone else, even though it's on paper. There's a swearing in ceremony that happens when you sign that paper. That's what people don't know. People say, oh, it's just on paper that you're married. You literally are swearing yourself in. So even if you're not serious at the moment of you signing that paper, you get serious really quick. Because once you say, so help me God, which is what they make you say while you're doing the whole thing. And this is not at the church I'm talking about. There's a whole swearing in where you have to bring a witness, and you guys have a Bible there, or whatever your religious belief is, but there's a Bible always there. Amen. You put your hand on that thing and you raise your hand, and your witness and the person you're marrying witness, they sign that thing. They sign that paper that says, I seen this person swear to God and say that they were going to do this, this, and that. So there's a bondage that happens right in that moment that people don't talk about because they worry about what was said at the wedding. No. This is outside of the wedding and the church and all of that. This is contractual spiritually, and with whatever state you're living in. You're legally and spiritually bound to that person. The fact that he's wanting to date you while he's still within that spiritual bondage, while he's still within that legal bondage, it shows you where his self-esteem is. And I would say to anybody, even myself, if you date while you're still married, your self-esteem is down. I don't suggest it. I don't recommend it. I think you should end this relationship. And I think that you should work on your self-esteem. And I think you should still be his friend if you think you can handle it. But if you know that you guys possess a strong sexual chemistry, or if you know that maybe you've even went to the point, I know people who are married and have children by another person and still have not taken that step. It's never too late, no matter how far you've gone with it, to stop the relationship and say, let's pause this until I close this door. Or if you're the person that's dating a married person, let's pause this until you close that door. Listen, you could have been anywhere in the world, but you decided to be here with me. I love you all. And remember, we are breaking hearts, blowing minds, one conversation at a time. Mwah.